Welcome. My name is Kim Humphrey, and I'm the CEO of Parents of Addicted Loved Ones. We have with us here today Josh Acevedo. He's a licensed substance abuse counselor. He's also the owner of a substance abuse program, primarily targeting teen and young adults, college age. And you've been at this for like 25 years or more. And we really appreciate you being here and talking to us today.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to it.
So Josh, why don't we just jump right in? You deal with families all the time because obviously you have a lot of younger kids coming in or young adults coming in, and I think we see a lot of issues where parents come in and they don't know what to do, and you over the years have kind of come up with some things that maybe help understand what are those main obstacles, maybe the top two, so that parents are facing when they're trying to deal with this issue with their son or daughter.
Well, I've seen this over the years, as long as I've been doing this. By the time parents call me usually and they're coming in to talk to us, they're starting to move past denial. But what's holding them up a lot is they're really afraid. What's going to happen? How will this reflect on me? Will we be able to help? And a lot of times they're also dealing with a lot of guilt. So parents, based on the way that our society is set up, a lot of times if their kids are having trouble, they think that it reflects immediately on them. This has been some shortcoming of mine. If my child is behaving a certain way, it must have something to do with where I failed as a parent. So a lot of times it takes tremendous courage just to make the first phone call, to even call and go, hey, we may need some help. And knowing that, those are the first things that we try to address when we talk to parents, when we get them in and we're sitting down, is, okay, lay out all of the things that you're afraid of and all of the things that you're most concerned about. And those are the things that I hear most consistently. So I'll go through some of the fears and some of the guilt that I hear really commonly and why I think it's a big obstacle. The guilt, a lot of times it is the parent thinks, if my kid ended up on drugs because of something that I did or did not do, and they may be going through their history as a parent and going, well, maybe it's because my father was an alcoholic and it's in their genes and I couldn't do anything about it. Or maybe it's because there was a divorce in the family. Maybe it's because dad worked too much. Parents are often going through and they're cycling through all these reasons that maybe their child didn't get their needs met and ended up on drugs, and they're afraid a lot of times that's going to come out and somebody's going to say, well, this was created by you. And one of the first things that we need to ease when a parent comes in is to let them know that is certainly not the case. I have dealt with cases throughout my career of every type of parent you can think of. Married parents, divorced parents, dads that worked a lot, dads that didn't work a lot, pastors, cops, engineers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, everybody in between. And very few times have I ever seen a case where I thought a lot of this was created by parents. Less than I can count on one hand, I think, in my entire career. I have met a few that started their kids using drugs. But that's
so you're talking about they literally
started them,
gave them drugs,
and gave them drugs.
And is not something you normally see.
No, it is incredibly rare in my career that I've seen that. Most of the parents that we deal with are parents that have done the best with what they have the whole time. They love their children. They've given them the best of what they know how to give them. They've gone to the soccer games. They've taught them right from wrong. They've given them what they need for life, and they certainly didn't start them down that road. And maybe this is a different question, how kids end up getting started down that road. We'll stay focused on the guilt for this. But so a lot of times when they come in, they're going, well, there must be something I didn't see that I did. What happened here? And that, if they think they did it, they also leads to this false belief that they can fix it, which I think we can touch on later also. If I did it, maybe I need to undo it in some way. So they take that upon themselves, and they will go, if I did it, then I've failed as my number one job in this world. For most parents, that's their primary job. Right? With me, that's how it is with my kids. I'm here to protect and guide you, and the last thing I want to do is fail that. So if I feel that way, and if that's reinforced at all by society, because you'll hear those kind of things, TV, movies, other parents, I've had so many parents come in and talk to me over the years that go, well, my parents had just told me, tell your kid to straighten up. Or somebody at work told me, tell your kid to straighten up. And they go, and it reinforces that belief, well, maybe it's some lack on my part. So that creates a lot of the fear too. That guilt creates the fear. I'm going to find out I did something wrong. I hurt this child. It's my fault and it can't be undone.
So if I recap that, the guilt is probably that first obstacle. So that when people come in, you deal with that issue, you talk about it, that it's not their fault. I know that I went through that, and it took a lot for me to get past the fact that, was it something that we had done? And so if guilt is a major obstacle, you also brought up fear. So I think you were about to say, the fear, and I think a lot of us know what you mean by that, but maybe you could just tell us in your experience, what is it about this issue of fear?
Well, starting from the guilt being, if the fear is if I did this, I failed my child, is part of it. Some of the next few things is I don't know what to do. And that's a really strange feeling also as a parent, is I'm supposed to be able to show up and help you, and I don't know how. And a lot of times when a parent has called, they feel very impotent, if you will. I've tried a bunch of things and they didn't work. I've talked to my kid, I've lectured, I've yelled, I've tried to put boundaries in place. I've done these things and they didn't work. So now I'm afraid to find out nothing's gonna work also, and there's nothing I can do. And the other thing that they run into a lot is there's a lot of fears that come with dealing with somebody on drugs and alcohol that are real direct. Are they going to die? Which is a real threat out there. And there's a lot of fears about dealing with them. A lot of people that are on drugs and abusing alcohol, a lot of alcoholics and addicts are really difficult to deal with by the time they're in an addiction. So there's a lot of fears. If I confront this, will they leave and I'll never get to hear from them again? If I bring it up to my spouse sometimes, who's been, maybe kind of looking the other way, will they get angry at me? If we bring it all out to the light, will we be judged by family, by friends? And those fears can keep a parent suffering alone, where they're isolated. It leads to, I'm suffering, I'm worried about my child, it's eating me alive, and I don't want to bring it out into the open and have somebody look down at me or see that I've failed.
And I think that leads to, what should or when should, parents, really get help for themselves. And I think it makes sense. I mean, if they're coming in and they're feeling this guilt and they have this fear, clearly, organizations like PAL, that's what they're there for. I mean, and that's, in your experience, what people need to do, right?
Absolutely. This is why, as you know, we've known each other a long time, and I've worked with PAL a lot. I think PAL is one of the best agencies that there is in the country. Because addiction, I'm an absolute believer that it's a family disease. It affects everybody. It doesn't just affect the person using the drugs. And to say that they're the only one that needs help would be, I think, a tremendous miss. The family is going to need the support. And there's several reasons I think it's really important for the family to get help. But one being is the first thing that usually happens when a parent goes to an organization like PAL or to a parent meeting, or they call us. One of the first things we want them to find out is that they're not alone, is that there are other families going through this. And that in of itself can create tremendous strength to start down the road to healing. We're not doing it by ourselves. We're not in isolation. And seeing other parents, when you go to a PAL meeting or you go to one of the meetings of my organization, you're going to go, oh, there's other people that have dealt with not only shared pain, but have a shared solution and a way to cope with it. And can start to address things like, if you're guilty, it's hard to say no. So if you think this is one of the first solutions a lot of parents get. If I think I created the problem, then I'm not going to say no, maybe to finances when I'm asked for money, because I feel bad that maybe I did this. But once they start to hear you didn't do this, and it's okay to say no to an addict who's pressing you for money, or things that, put up boundaries that maybe you haven't had before, it can be inspiring. It can go, well, there's other parents that have done it, and their relationships with their kids have stayed intact and with each other. And the marriage has gotten stronger, and as they've pulled together and gotten on the same page. And so, anytime that you reach out for help, you're going to learn also. That's the next thing I was going to go to, is it leads also to a lot of education about addiction and how it works, what's going on with the addict themselves. Because if you don't know, you're shooting in the dark all the time, right? You're going to be, well, maybe we should try this, maybe we should try that. That's one of the things is, we'll try some reasoning. Do you know drugs are bad for you? Which most kids already know when they're doing them. They're not doing them because they don't know that it's the wrong thing to do. They're doing it because they're addicted by the time most parents are seeking help.
Clearly, parents need support. They need when they get around other individuals that have experienced this, they have that "you're not alone" part. They get the education, and then they decide to make some changes. They want to do some healthier things in their response. It's really nice to have other people around you to support you when you make those decisions.
Absolutely. And I was going for the education there a little bit. If you understand a disease, you can understand how to treat it. Like once somebody comes to understand diabetes, they then know what to treat. They know what dietary changes to make. They know how to take insulin. They learn how to manage it. And with an addict, they need to learn that for themselves. But for the family of an addict, they learn a lot of that too, is how do we learn to communicate differently? How do we learn what is healthy to support and not to support for somebody who's had an addiction? And that education piece changes everything, because you're no longer just guessing. You're not shooting in the dark and going, I hope that what I'm about to try works. And when you have a lot of other parents who've tried a lot of things, and you can really narrow down the learning curve or shorten the learning curve so that you can try less of the things that maybe don't land so well and really focus on the solution.
Well, Josh, I really appreciate it. We've covered really what we believe are the two, biggest obstacles that parents face when they start dealing with this and they show up, and that's this issue of guilt and fear, and then what can they do about it, and that's getting the support they need and finding organizations like PAL that can be there for them for education support to bring back that hope that their loved ones can and do get better.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. Absolutely.